Good evening and welcome everyone gathered here in 770, as well as all those gathered online at beisrabeinu.com/22 Shvat for an evening of learning in honor of the Rebbetzins upcoming 32nd yard site this Chaf Beis Shvat. Rebbetzin Chaya, Mushkosh Neresins Chusay, Yagein Aleinu. Before we begin tonight's program, I would like to thank a few individuals who made this beautiful evening possible. Thank you, Rav Usher and Rivka Karnofsky, for generously sponsoring tonight's evening in honor of the Rebbetzin and in loving memory of their beloved son, Hatamim Shmuel Karnofsky. I just heard that many of his classmates are here in the audience with us tonight. I am sure this is a tremendous nachas ruach and an aliyah for his neshama. Thank you. This event was also made possible by Menachem ben Shimon in honor of Rebbetzin, of the Rebbe and Rebbetzin, and in honor of his father's birthday, which is tonight. Special thank you to Moshe Rabashkin for everything that he does for our community and for tonight's program. Another special thank you to Habacher Atamim Mendel Mintz. May you go Mechayil al Chayil and continue to be the sweet soldier of the Rebbe. Thank you, Rebbe David and Chani Yunik, for their sponsoring of tonight's evening, as well as Yudshvat and many other programs. Thank you, Arla and Shani Pinson, for generously sponsoring. And a special happy birthday to Arla. Tonight is his birthday, Yutes Shvat, as well as his wife Shani's birthday on Chav Shvat. So happy birthday to both of you. A special thank you to Dudi and Chani Farkash for generously sponsoring this in honor of the Rebbetzin. Dudi asked us to mention that he is also dedicating tonight's program in honor of a very dear friend of all of ours who we recently lost, Rav Pinchas, known to everybody as Pinto Greenberg, whose birthday is actually on Chaf Beis Shvat, and in honor of Yibadei L'chaim Tovim, Dudi's birthday, which is Chav Gimel Shvat, and in honor of Dudi's father, the Paisik Rabbi Kursiel Farkash, whose birthday is Chav Daled Shvat. Dudi also asked to mention that today's program is in honor of his dear friend, Moshe Klein. Thank you, Yerachmiel and Rivka Leah Jacobson, Ari and Malki Sperlin, Zalman and Devira Vashetsky, Nussi and Gitti Sternberg, Eyu Jashakoyach, to Yossi and Mika Sofer and COL Live for always promoting such beautiful programs in our community. Last but not least, thank you Tzemach and Deviri Rosenthal from Los Angeles, California. Before we begin tonight's program, I would like to remind everyone, as we always been doing, that tonight's program and event, for those especially watching online, you can download the Maamar that we will be learning, that you could follow along inside. Again, beisrabeinu.com/22 Shvat. For those that are here in the audience, there is a booklet in front of you to follow along the Maamar. When we are done, everyone who participated in the beautiful shir should fill out their name and their mother's name, which the link is on the website, and we will notify the Rebbe with the B'surais Toivos, the good news for all those that gathered here tonight in Sheves Achim Gam Yachad. Without any further ado, please give your attention to our world-renowned mashpia, Maggid Shir, and Dean of InsideChasidus.org, Harav Yosef Yitzchak Paltiel Shlita.
Okay, hello everybody. I think because you can see me so well, I can't see you at all. It's the nature of the beast. First of all, I am a native Crown Heightser, born and bred. And as a member of this community, I want to express my incredible gratitude for the fact that something is being done for us, specifically for us. Of course, it's for the whole world, but it's specifically for Anash of Crown Heights. I don't want to sound self-aggrandizing, but we're entitled. We deserve it. Crown Heights is the bowels of Lubavitch. Everybody comes from here. Everybody comes to here. Everybody comes to the Rebbe and from the Rebbe. But the Anshe Shleimenu, the Anash who live here, are the people, the individuals who share their streets and their homes and their shuls and their moisters chinuch with Yidden from all over the world. And to me, this is incredibly meaningful and very gratifying that something is being done for us. And a big yasher koyach to the people who have undertaken this project and all of these projects. It's a great schus. We're having a fabrengen, we're giving a shir in the schus of the Rebbetzin. And of course, we're pashat learning Torah. It's not very complicated. We're not doing anything very lofty or creative. We're pashat learning Torah. And of course, we all know that the Rebbe always says, the Rebbe spoke v'negeh to his Yom Holedes. The Rebbe was asked about birthday presents. So the Rebbe said, Jede Sache darf sich annehmen von Torah. So we are doing this in the schus of the Rebbetzin, and to be very candid, we're not doing it in the schus of the Rebbetzin, we're doing it in the schus of our hiskashrus, that we should have a connection to the Rebbe and a connection to the Rebbetzin. As we all know, they don't need our schusim. We need this relationship. We need these schusim. So we're simply going to learn Torah, a Maamar from the Rebbe that's connected with this event and this time. And this will be Lila Nishmasa, it'll be the schus for our hiskashrus. And as the Rebbe says, Beklal, the Rebbe's philosophy always is that whenever you get together as Yidden, there needs to be Torah and Tefillah and Tzedakah. So we're doing Torah, and I'm sure there'll be a Tefillah before or a Tefillah after. And certainly everybody's in a position to give Tzedakah, so that we have all three. The Rebbe wanted, it says in Hayom Yom, the Rebbe wanted that if you have a bias of Torah, it should also be Tefillah and Gemilas Chasadim. If a bias of Tefillah, it should also be Torah and Gemilas Chasadim. If it's a bias of Gemilas Chasadim, it should also be Torah and Tefillah. A specific yasher koyach to Menachem and to Mendel Mintz and to Moshe Rabaskin, and of course all the people who financially and physically make this all possible. Thank you very, very, very much. And I hope this happens more. I really do. I really hope this happens more. And as I said, I am a native Crown Heightser. I think Crown Heights is entitled. We deserve it. And thank you. Thank you, really. Thank you very much. I think it could be said, that the Rebbe made a Rebbetzin after Chav Beis Shvat. The Rebbetzin was always a Rebbetzin. You know, there's an alter word by Chassidim, it's based on Chazal, based on Halacha. Eishes Chaver Kechaver. But the Rebbetzin played a very private role, a very active but very, very private role. And most of us, even those who grew up here, from my generation for sure, if they would see her on the street, we would literally not know how she looked. Mamish. We knew if we saw any pictures of her, no one had any pictures of her in our homes. And she was really not somebody that was in the fore of our minds. When the Rebbetzin passed away, it seems to me, and I've spoken to others, the Rebbe made a point of making the Rebbetzin a Rebbetzin. That means the Rebbe wants that the Rebbetzin should be in our lives, in our homes, on our walls, in our minds. Our children should carry her name. Because as the Rebbe wrote, this will increase in the Vacha Yiten Alibe. I'm sure you are aware that there is a very interesting meine to Harav Gavriel Zinnes or Gesund sein that he wrote to the Rebbe on the occasion of Shloishim in Tafshin Memches, that there was a question of publishing pictures of the Rebbetzin. And he wrote that he felt that halachically there was an issue with it. And Kedarkei B'Kodesh, the Rebbe used his own words. The Rebbe took the words that he had written and the sources that he brought, and he made certain modifications. And he said that the same reasons he's saying we shouldn't have her photo, we're halachically allowed to have her photo. And then he wrote underneath, V'ulai zehu tam ha-moisifim, which means perhaps this is the reason why the people of Moisifim, for those who are old enough, this was the language of the time. In the mems, the Rebbe was every week almost giving out new mivtzoyim. And there was a group of people whose the inyan was Moisifim, to deal to the new ideas and the new programs that the Rebbe had initiated. And the Rebbe wrote, the reason there are people who are making a point of publishing a photograph and having a photograph is because it's moisif, it adds in the idea of v'chayit and elibe. And v'chayit and elibe, we all understand what this means. V'chayit and elibe means that the Chazal teach us, and the Rambam brings this, and of course Chassidus talks about this, that nothing in the world is mikra nikris, nothing that happens in the world is coincidental and happenstance, everything is very precise. Everything is ba'ashgacha pratis. And when somebody passes away, and in any way, shape, or form you're involved or you become aware of this event, that itself is proof that there's a lesson in it for you. And if one fails to learn that lesson, I believe that the Lashon Rambam is areizu derech achzorius, to see something happen in the world, which is part of teva ha'olam. But nevertheless, it's tragic. And to say mikra nikris, it has no meaning, it's just part of the nature of the world, is not the way Yidden think and the way Torah thinks, and certainly not the way Chassidus thinks. So the Rebbe taught us v'achayit and aliba, and during that entire year, every fabrengen, every sicha, every occasion, the language that the Rebbe employed was v'achayit, the living had to take to heart. And v'achayit and aliba doesn't only mean to learn from her Hepech HaChaim, from her Miseh, but to learn from her life. And over the few years after Tafshin Memches, the Rebbe talked about the Rebbetzin many, many times. I'm just going to reference two quotes that are found in the Rebbe Siches, that the Rebbe said or wrote in the Mugadik Siches from the Rebbetzin. The first one is more famous, that the Rebbe repeated that during the Pashas HaSfarim, the Rebbetzin was asked that in her personal opinion, whom did the Sfarim belong to? And she said, the Sfarim belonged to Chassidim because my father belonged to Chassidim. And the Rebbe said that this reached the judge. The Rebbe said he found out that this reached the judge and that it made an impression, a special impression on the judge, this idea that the Rebbe belongs to Chassidim. Of course, this is entirely consistent with what Chassidus and what Halacha teaches us about what a Melech is and what a Nasi is and what a Rebbe is. And the second quote, which is in Siches, Mugadik Siches, from the Rebbetzin, which is not as well known, is that the Rebbetzin said to Shluchim from France, to a Shliach from France, to a Shlucha from France, quote, Miram geaket and gezeit und ihr wird schneiden. The Rebbe and the Rebbetzin spent years in France, and what did the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin do in France? So she herself defined the years that they spent in France as Charish Uzriya, plowing and seeding, and that the Shluchim, the Chassidim living in France now are going to reap the fruit of the Mesiras Nefesh, of the Avodah that the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin did in France. Of course, there's so much to learn from the Rebbetzin. And as everybody says, the people who knew her always talk about her Mesiras Nefesh, how her whole life was lived to allow the Rebbe to do the things that the Rebbe had to do. And all of us Anash, all of us Hasidim, owe the Rebbetzin an incredible debt of gratitude for giving us the Rebbe, for the Mesiras Nefesh that the Rebbetzin allowed us to have the Rebbe. And if you hear the stories, the more you hear, the more incredible they become, that there wasn't an instant in all those years that she thought about how it was better for her. It was always, only, exclusively, absolutely, how it was better for the Rebbe. You know, the story, one of the stories Mrs. Sternberg tells is that the Rebbetzin had broken her hip, I think. And she was in an enormous amount of pain. And they couldn't cast her. They couldn't put her in a cast. Which meant that the broken bone was not held, and the pain was excruciating. And every day the Rebbe would visit her in the hospital. And before the Rebbe would visit, the Rebbetzin would ask the nurses to tie her up so that they shouldn't move and that she shouldn't grimace. She shouldn't make an expression, a facial expression, which indicates that she was having pain. And the Rebbetzin wanted that the Rebbe came in, she should look beautiful and fresh. And she says, Mrs. Sternberg says, whoever heard of a wife like that? She's going to such an Ibelebenish. And her only concern is, not she's going to complain to her husband, that her husband shouldn't be concerned with her health. And just now I saw the film, I've never seen this film before. Mrs. Sternberg said that Monday night, Chav Bei Shvat was Wednesday, yeah? So Monday night was Oir L'Chaval of Shvat. The Rebbetzin wasn't feeling well, and there was a thought to take her to a doctor and so on. And the Rebbetzin refused. One night before her P'tira, before her Stalkus, and the reason she gave was because it was a night of Yechidus. And the Rebbetzin said, if I go to the hospital, the Rebbe is going to cancel the Yechidus, and it'll cost Chassidim Agmas Nefesh, and therefore the Rebbe should not be informed, and she should not go to a hospital. I mean, this is, the Mesiras Nefesh has no bounds. So we say, Adank the Eibishten for the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, and Adank the Rebbetzin for the Eibishten, because both of those things are absolutely true. So let's learn the Maamar. Okay, we have a good Maamar. It's not that long, but it's a very, very geschmacka Maamar. And of course, this Maamar, the Rebbe said it when he finished saying Kaddish for his mother. The Rebbe's Chana passed away Vav Tishrei, Tavshin Chav Hei. That year was a leap year. It was an Iber Yar. So the Rebbe finished saying Kaddish, Hey Ov, not Hey Elo. Because it was 11 months from Vav Tishrei was Hey Menachem Ov, which of course is the yard site of the Arizal. And the Rebbe made a Fabrengen on that occasion. The Rebbe said a Maamar. And on the Shloishim of the Rebbetzin, the Rebbe was Magia, and he gave out this Maamar, Bila Hamoves Lanetzach. And this is the Maamar that we're going to learn with Hashem's help. I want to begin with a simple thought, really a common sense thought. It's counterintuitive, but it's very logical. Al pi seichel, logically. In other words, if you separate logic from what we experience physically, just think about it in theory. What makes more sense? What makes more sense? That everything that is should be forever, or everything that is should be temporary? What makes more sense? What's more logical? Something comes into existence. Obviously, the Eibishter made it. The natural condition of all of Hashem's creation, should they be immortal? Should they last forever? Or should they be mortal? Should be temporary? This is a philosophical question. In other words, if we understand, and we do a little bit, that everything comes from the Eibishter, a creation which comes from a creator should reflect the creator, the Eibishter. So what is more logical? Nitzchius or Misa? What makes more common sense? A creation made by an eternal Eibishter should also be eternal, or it should be temporary? And the proposal is, and this seems, it doesn't say explicitly, but this is the implication, it makes sense that if the Eibishter is forever, everything Hashem does should also be forever. In other words, immortality, nitzchius, living forever, which we see as such a big ness, actually makes more sense than Misa, than mortality, that things are born and they die. Because the creation should reflect the Eibishter, should reflect the Creator. He is a nitzchi, so we should be nitzchi. I'm going to give you an example, a simple example. There's a phenomenon in the world called zikoron and shikha. Zikoron means memory, and shikha means forgetfulness. What makes sense? That if you hear something, you should remember forever, or you should forget. If you read something, you should remember it forever, or you should forget it. So lahavdil in chochmes umes, we know now. Anything you ever saw, anything you ever heard, anything you ever experienced is in your brain forever. It never leaves the brain. Everything that goes into our mind is a davar nitzchi. There is a phenomenon called shikha. There's an idea called forgetfulness. But forgetfulness is not considered natural. Forgetfulness is considered a consequence of klipa, shikha. In Kedusha, there is no shikha. The natural order of things are you heard something, you read something, you saw something, you should have immediate recall forever. You should never forget it. And I imagine in my imaginings, people always wonder, Why didn't the ancient peoples write things down? Why didn't they have paper? So they say they couldn't produce paper. Adam Rishon was a pretty smart guy. If he needed to produce paper, he could have produced paper. The terza pashta zach. If you have a memory that's so infallible that you never forget anything, you simply have no reason to write anything down. It's natural. It makes sense that something that you heard or saw should be forever. Shikha, forgetfulness, that Chazal say that sometimes it's actually a bracha, is a consequence of a klipa, of something negative which is added to the natural condition. And the same is true of Misa. Right? I mean, this is a fact of life. 100% of the people who are born pass away. It's a natural thing. And we therefore presume that that's how it's supposed to be. Torah teaches us, Chassidus teaches us, that the phenomena of death, the idea that something dies, is hepech hasechel. And it needs a reason. For something not to live forever, there has to be an explanation for why it cannot continue existing. If it was made by the Eibishter, and the Eibishter is a nitzchi, everything that's created should be, so to speak, in his image, should also be an inyan nitzchi. And that's really the spirit of the Maamar we have in front of us. The Maamar discusses Bila HaMavos LaNetzach, the end of death, but much of the Maamar doesn't explain the end of death. Much of the Maamar explains the basis for death, the idea of things dying. Because logically, philosophically, in other words, if you're able to separate your mind from your experience and think about it absolutely hypothetically, it should make sense that something made by the Eibishter should be forever, and you need a good reason, an explanation for the inyan hamavos. And that's how this Maamar has to be approached. La'olam, ideally, in truth, something which Hashem made, something which is living and has a living soul, should be a davar nitzchi, should be forever. There's something that happened in the creation, of course, it has to do with our free will and other factors like that, which affected the introduction, if you will, of Misa, of death, not only to living things, but to human beings. Our Maamar is going to first ask, why is there Misa? And then our Maamar is going to discuss the cessation, the end of Misa. And the end of Misa should not be seen as a novelty, as a chiddush, as a nayis, as something special. The end of death should be seen as the world returning to a condition that makes sense. The Eibishter's world, the Eibishter's a nitzchi, his creation's a nitzchiyim, and human beings should be nitzchiyim as well. So here we go. Please open up your kontreisim. I can see very well. I can see too well, unfortunately. Like I said, but I cannot see you. Open up your kontreisim. If your eyes are as bad as mine, you're going to have to listen to me. But if your eyes work, if you have young eyes, you can follow inside. Okay, the pasuk says, Bila HaMavos LaNetzach, that in the future, Mavis, death, will be swallowed up LaNetzach, forever. Umacha, the Shem Elokim, God Almighty, will erase Dima. Dima means tears. That means sadness. I mean, I'll call upon it from the face of all of human beings. This is the pasuk. Umeva yerad mor marash. So the Rebbe Marash explains Maamar his Maamar based on this pasuk. The zeh shel yasid lavi. The fact that la'asid lavi. Yibi la'hamavos lanetzach, there will be a cessation, there will be an end, there will be a swallowing up of not only the reality of death, but the very idea of death. The circumstance will be the Eibush is going to remove the spirit of Tumah. So what's the Rebbe saying? The source of Misa is Ruach HaTumah. If there had never been Ruach HaTumah, there would not have been Misa in the first place. But because there is a Ruach HaTumah, which is the basis for Misa, when the Ruach HaTumah is removed, so to speak, things return to what makes real sense, which is the idea that people should live forever. Now, I just want to make a clarification that's very, very important, okay? That we learn, of course, in Sfarim and in Chassidus, that there are three periods. The world is three conditions, three stages. There's Elam Hazeh, there's Yemei Mashiach, and there's Elam Haba. There's this world, there's the time of Mashiach, and then there's Elam Haba. Basically, in this world, there is a fight between good and evil. In the times of Mashiach, we grow in good. But both Elam Hazeh and Yemei Mashiach are part of what's called Hayom La'aseisam. They're a time for work. Elam Haba, this is called Schar, and this is after the Avodah. And of course, as you know, according to the Ramban, which is the Rebbe says we go like the Ramban because he's a Basra, the Elam Haba is Neshama Beguf, is Tchias HaMesim. In other words, however we deal with that Rambam, I'm not going into that approach. According to the Ramban, Tchias HaMesim is synonymous, not with Mashiach. Tchias HaMesim is synonymous with Elam Haba. Mashiach is a world like the world we have now, whether there are Nisim or there are not Nisim. Mashiach is a world like the world we have now. There is birth and there is death and there is life, but there's Arikas Yamim and there's no illness. And people are able to grow in Tev and Kedusha because Eisa Kol Ha'olam Kuli L'das As Hashem, and therefore Yisrael are Yedim V'estach Dvarim Astumim Asikin Das Beiram Kefi Koyach Ha'odam. But Mashiach is a world that similar to the world we know. The idea that there's no Misa, which is associated with Tchias HaMesim, this is the third Kufa. This is after the Yemei HaMashiach. So the Rebbe now continues and he says, V'yuvan zeh, the idea that there's going to be a time in the future when there's Bila Amavas HaNetzach, there's no more death, because there's no more Tumah. Says the Rebbe, Behegde Matam. We have to preface first and explain Hamavur Bekra de Lekama. The pasuk that we quoted, that we're going to mention soon, Shayedei Chet Eitz Hadas Nasa Misa Be'elam. The first thing you have to point out is that Misa was a creation. It wasn't natural. Natural, you live forever. Something happened in the creation of the Eibishter's world which brought Misa into the world in the first place, and therefore there becomes a need for Bila Amavas HaNetzach and Esruach HaTuva Abba Menards. Hainu. Shemisa v'chet eitz hadas v'yocham zeh lazeh, says the Rebbe, there's a direct association between the phenomena of death and the original sin of eating Adam and Chava ate from the eating from the eitz hadas tevara, they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and this introduced to the world the necessity for death, as the Rebbe is going to explain, and because it introduced to the world the necessity of death, it therefore introduced death itself. V'ha'inyan hu, and we read on, okay? So you see clearly in this second paragraph, what I suggested, that Misa is a Chiddush. Misa is not the Teva HaDvarim. Misa is a Chiddush that comes from the Chet Eitz Hadas. Says the Rebbe, Da Yedei Chet Eitz Hadas, when Adam and Chava ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, Nasa Taruvas Tevara. It did not only introduce the concept of good and evil, it introduced Taruvas. Taruvus means a disorderly entanglement of good and evil. And he explains. The Metzi Yesara, the phenomena of death, Hayagam Kedamachet. When Hashem created the world, he created evil. I said death, I meant evil. When the Eibishter created the world, Hashem created evil. Elish Oz, Hoya Hara, moved Me'atev. When God Almighty, when Hashem created evil in the beginning, he created evil on one side of the street and good on the other side of the street. They were categorically and distinctly separate, clearly separate. Ukiyadua, like it says in Kabbalah, Shebetchil Sabri, when Hashem originally created the world, Hayemodur haklipes lemata meha'elames de gedusha. The house, the dwelling place of Klipa was underneath the worlds of holiness. Vayedei chet eitz hadas, as a consequence of the original sin, Nase ta'aruvis, it created an entanglement, a mixing together of teva ravachol elam, good and evil in the whole world. Meaning, shahara ma'urev b'hatev, good is entangled, evil is entangled with good. V'hatev ma'urev b'hara, good is entangled with evil. And then he brings a quote, which the source of it, if you look in 7, is Elakutei Deburim, ein tev b'lirav, ein la b'litev. In the world as we know it, there's no such thing as absolute good. There's no such thing as absolute evil, which, by the way, is makes our life more confusing, because you never can say this is black. Because this statement, ein tev b'lirav, ein la b'litev, says the same thing as, there's no black and white, there's just shades of gray. That's the taich. Ein tev b'lirav, ein la b'litev means there's no absolute white, there's no absolute black, there's simply shades of gray. So a little bit of background. I tried to make this as concise as I possibly can. A little bit of background, okay? We know, we learn a little Hasidus, so, we have the aha of Chochmas HaKabbalah, like the Tzemach Tzedek said. Yeah, we learn a little Hasidus, learn a little Kabbalah. We know that one of the purposes for which Hashem created the world, and there's more than one, is Avedis HaBirurim, right? There's Teira Mitzvahs, there's Nesyenis, There's Dira B'Tachtainim. There's a lot of different reasons why the Eibishter made the world, and they're not mutually exclusive. They're mutually inclusive. They complete each other. One of the purposes which Hashem created the world is what's called Avedas HaBirurim. The word birur means to separate, like boirer, to separate. You have things mixed together, and you have to unmix them. That's the taich. That's the meaning of the word boirer, to unmix, to disentangle, to separate. How did the Eibishter Kayochel facilitate the phenomena of Avedas HaBirurim? So we learn about this. There's something called Elam HaToihu. Then there's Shviras HaKelim, and there's Elam HaTikun. And of course, the expressions that are familiar to us are Boina Almanas, listed. Hashem didn't make any mistakes. Hashem created Elam HaToihu with the full understanding that Elam HaToihu could not be sustained. And it would shatter, there would be a Shvira. Soiser Almanas, Livnais, the Eibishter shattered Elam HaToihu in order to build Elam HaTikun. And through that process, the Eibishter introduced the phenomena of nitzutzes, of sparks of godliness, and the innovators habirurim to the creation. And this is how you have to understand. This steht in Chassidus and Kabbalah. That's how it's described. When the Eibishter made the world, he made Elam HaToihu, right? I teach Bachrim, What's Elam HaToihu? What's Elam HaTikun? It's two Atzilus. It's two different Atzilus. Elam HaToihu was Atzilus version 1. Elam HaTikun is Atzilus version 2. What's the difference? Both of them share the property of Atzilus, which is a Gili of Ein Seif. That's what Atzilus is, Gili of Ein Seif. But Elam HaToihu was a Gili of the Mahus of Etzem of Ein Seif. And Elam HaTikun is the Gili of the Mahus of the Ha'ora of Ein Seif. Those are the fancy words. The Eibishter created Elam HaToihu. There was a Gili Mahus of the Etzem of Ein Seif. There was a Shvira. The Kalim couldn't take it. There's a lot of details, and a lot of different Maamarim will say things in different Teifanim. Bottom line is the Eibishter made Elam HaToihu, and he shattered it. So the oil went away, and the Kalim fell. And when the Kalim fell, of course, there's Nitzutzei oil in these Kalim. Now the Eibishter did not take a broom and sweep up the waste and start over. The Eibishter took that junk and fixed it and made Elam HaTikun. He took the Shivrei Kalim of Tehu, and he was mevader them. It's called Birur Rishon Milmayla Lamata. In Kabbalah, there's Birur Milmata Lamayla. This is what we do. Kvayach, when the Eibishter created the world, he made a Birur. He made a clarification to create the worlds of Tikkun from the Shivrei Kalim of Elam HaToihu. And the Eibishter doesn't have to get his hands dirty. The Eibishter does the B'derech Oyer. B'chochma is Beriru. The Eibishter shines Oyer, and he collects the best of Nitzutzei Toihu, and he creates Elam HaTikun, creates Atzilus. When the Eibishter shined the light, and from the Shivrei Kalim of Elam HaToihu, he created Atzilus. Atzilus was Mesukan, it was perfect, it was Tikkun. No mistakes, no junk, no nitzutzes, no sparks, no missing pieces, no loose pieces, no unresolved details. And he took all of the waste and he threw it outside of Atzilus. And the Eibishter did it a second time. Called Birur, it's called Birur Rishon Milmayla Lamata, created Elam HaBriya. When the Eibishter created Elam HaBriya, it was also Mesukan, it's perfect. The Nitzutzei Toihu, which became the basis for Elam HaBriya, Kvayach, where the Eibishter made them, were absolutely in a state of Tikkun. Then the Eibishter did it a third time and did it a fourth time. The Eibishter created Elam HaAsiya with an Oyer Elyon, an Oyer of Chochma, which is Mevarer Elam HaAsiya. And Elam HaAsiya was Mesukan, was a perfect world. As you read in the Chumash, that Elam HaAsiya was a paradise. Elam HaAsiya was Gan Eden. This earth was Gan Eden. There was no, right, in Psukim, there was no case, there was no darda. Imagine living in a garden. You don't have to worry about weeds, and you don't have to worry about parasites, and you don't have to worry about fungus. There was nothing to ruin the fruit. The fruit was self-preserved because there was nothing in the world that could have affected the fruit adversely. So what happened to the klipa? What happened to the junk? What happened to the leftovers? The Eibishter threw it in what's called in Kabbalah betachtes ha'asiyah. The Rebbe calls it here muvdal mehatev. Adam and Chava put into this world, which is a Gan Eden, it's a paradise. Perfect world, entirely orderly. And the Eibishter says to Adam and Chava, you sit in Gan Eden and eat fruit. Sag die Gemara, my peri mitzvahs. Eat fruit, do mitzvahs. And you should just know, the Eibishter says to Adam and Chava, you sit in Gan Eden and you do mitzvahs, and you're cleaning out the basement. Underneath you, there's an Eilam, there's a place. There's a mother of Ra, And this mother of Ra has sparks of holiness, because if it didn't have sparks of holiness, it wouldn't exist. You sit in Gan Eden and eat fruit, eat from the Eitz HaChaim, and the bitter will happen by itself. And the Eibusha tells them there's two trees, B'teich HaGan, one is called Eitz HaChaim, the other is called Eitz HaDas. Don't eat from the Eitz HaDas. Why? Because when you eat from the Eitz HaDas, then you're going to know Teiv and Ra. I don't want you to know Teiv and Ra. So without going into all of the details and all of the questions and answers, Adam and Chava made the decision that if they're going to be Mavarer Teiv from Ra, they're going to have to know the Teiv and Ra intimately. They don't want to do things long distance. They don't want to do things B'derech Memela. They want to do things B'derech Eslapshus. And they made a choice. They didn't make a mistake. We make mistakes. They made a choice. It was a terrible mistake, but it was a choice. They're going to eat from the Eitz HaDas, Tevara, because they wanted to be Yedei Tevara. They wanted to see what they're accomplishing through their Avodah. What they didn't understand is that when they ate Tzdas Tevara, they didn't become smart and understanding their Seichel Tevara. They became Tevara. Tevara was not something that was introduced to their brain. It was introduced to their arms and their legs and their guf and their neshama and their world. They became a hergish of Tevara. The Ra, which was Betachtas Asiya, rose up. Asiya became Taruv as Tevara, and that's the pshat in the Maamar Basi Lagani, that the Elikus Kvayachal had to depart from this world. When Adam and Chava ate from this world, it stopped being Gan Eden. Kvayachal, the Eibusha, couldn't be in a place which was not Gan Eden, so there was a Siluk, Lamaila, like you learn in Basi Lagani. So Adam and Chava ate from the Eitz Das Tevara, and they became Tevara. Inside each human being, inside every creation in this world, in the words of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the last words on page 6, everything in this world does a little good and a little evil. In every single person there's Tevara. The Chazal bring, and it basically means every human being that's a descendant of Chava, and we're all descendants of Chava, have in ourselves Ra. Or to say it differently, we have in ourselves Misa. And we continue. So because Adam and Chava ate Nisas Tas Tevara, and Das Tevara was not simply an awareness of Tevara, they became Tevara. V'zehu ma'ashakos, we continue to read on top of 7. This is what the pasuk says. V'ata, and now that Adam and Chava, Kvayachal, ate from the Eitz HaDas, the Eibush, Kvayachal is concerned. This is amusing. Kvayachal, the Eibush is talking to himself. Pen yishlach yodei. Perhaps Adam and Chava will extend their hand. V'lokach gam Eitz HaChaim. They'll take from the tree of life. V'ochal, and they will eat. V'chai la'elam, and they'll live forever. Says the Rabbi, I don't understand. When God Almighty created people in the first place, it was in such a way, Adam and Chava was supposed to live forever. That's the natural condition of things. God made you, so you're in God's image. The Eibush is forever, you're forever. Moreover, when Hashem said, don't eat from the Eitz HaDas, He said, "Mipri Eitz Hagan echel ochel tegel, u'mipri Eitz Hagan shebatei Hagan." The Eitz HaDas you shouldn't eat, but they were not told not to eat from Eitz HaChaim. They were not only told not to eat Eitz HaDas. Eitz HaChaim they were permitted to eat. They eat from Eitz HaDas. Now the Eibush Kvayachal is nervous. What happens if they're now going to eat from the Eitz HaChaim? So the Rebbe explains why. V'atam al zeh. The reason they were told not to eat from Eitz HaDas. They should not die, or there should be no phenomenon of death and creation. As the pasuk says, you shouldn't eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Key. The day you'll eat from the Eitz HaDas Tevara Meis Tammuz. So the Rebbe says, I don't understand. They're not supposed to eat from Eitz HaDas because they're supposed to live forever. They were never told not to eat from Eitz HaChaim. Frag the Rebbe, ma ichpas, why does it bother the Eibush Kvayachal now? Sheyechal me Eitz HaChaim. That Adam and Chava are going to eat from the Eitz HaChaim. After they ate from the Eitz HaDas, they're going to live forever. Why shouldn't they live forever? And the Alter Rebbe explains, before Chet Eitz HaDas, it was a good thing they should live forever. Before Chet Eitz Hadas, it would have been a wonderful thing if they ate from the Eitz HaChaim. But, Mikivan Shayadei Chet Eitz Hadas, when Adam and Chava ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, Nis'arev Rabba Ha'adam, the human being became an entanglement of good and evil. In other words, we don't just know evil. We are a mix of good and evil. Ein teiv v'li rave rabba li teiv. For ata, so now, la'achar Chet Eitz Hadas, because of the Chet Eitz Hadas, yesh lachshesh, now it's a concern, now it's a problem. Pen yishlach yodei v'geime v'chai la'elam, perhaps Adam and Chava will extend their hand and eat from the Eitz HaChaim and live forever, which means this. Ki kishayihi yehu chai la'elam, if Adam and Chava are going to live forever without the proper birur, gam hara hama'urav bei, the evil inside them, yelei kiyum li'elam, will also exist forever, and this will be a problem. In other words, it was because of Eitz Hadas that the Eibishter cannot let them live forever, because however you explain the Kabbalah, if Adam and Chava eat from Eitz HaChaim, they will live forever, and the Ra inside of them, which is a consequence of the Eitz Hadas Tevara, will also live forever. And he therefore kicks them out of Gan Eden, or depending on how you want to look at it. Either he kicks them out of Gan Eden, or he kicks Gan Eden out of them. The bottom line is the Eibush does not let them eat from Eitz HaChaim, and from that moment forward until Tchias HaMesim, there's Mis. Accordingly, we understand the real reason why, as a consequence of eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, death was introduced to the world, a chiddush, a novelty, things don't live forever, that evil should not have an existence. So there's an explanation. Why is there Misa? Misa does not make sense. If Hashem gives us life, and life is attached to Him, and He is forever, we should also live forever. Why is there Misa? The Teretz is the Eibishter doesn't want things to live forever, because He wants the Ra to be extracted from each of us before He gives us eternal life, immortality. V'yesh shloima. Now the Rebbe had something else. The first thing the Rebbe said, in the paragraph before, what did the Rebbe say? That Hashem brings death to the world, so Klippa shouldn't live forever. It's like a Siba Mesubav, right? He doesn't want the evil to live forever, so he introduces Misa. But now the Rebbe says a little different. The Hamisa ba'olam shenesesai dechet Eitz Hadas, the fact that Misa was introduced to the world through the sin of eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, is misuveves me'achet atzmei. Hashem didn't do it, the sin did it. There's two thoughts. Thought number one, now that there's klipa in people, they're not allowed to live forever to get the klipa out. Thought number two, the sin itself brings death. It's an Eidah letter thought. And he explains. Vaha inyanu, the pshat is. The inyan achayes hu bekedusha davke. Life has to do with kedusha. What's evil and what's unclean, the opposite of holiness, is mavis, is death. Whereas, because of the original sin of eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, evil was added to the person, mavis ruchni, spiritual death. Consequently, in the person's experience, there is also a phenomenon of misa. So again, there's two thoughts. Thought number one is, death is introduced, so klipa shouldn't last forever. And thought number two, death is introduced because Eitadas Tevara is death. So the first point is like a Siba Mesubav. Hashem doesn't let us live forever so that. And the second is Memele, because Eitadas has to do with Misa, that's what is Misa in the world. And the Rebbe concludes, V'zehu, accordingly, Gam, this also explains the other side of the coin. Mashal Yosed Love in Ilm Haba, Yabila Mavis Lanetzach. Death is going to be interrupted in Lanetzach. The Mekiven Sha'oz Yizbat Al Hara. The moment there's no evil, there's no Mavis Haruchni. There will automatically be Gambila Mavis Kipshuta, a cessation of dying. And again, I keep repeating myself, and I intend and continue to repeat myself. The word of the Maamar is not that there's going to be a chiddush of nitzchius, but there's going to be interruption of the chiddush of misa. Okay, turn the page. Peirik Beis. V'hinei. Page 8. Hatam al zeh, the reason why this is, Shedavke la'asad lavi after Elam Haba occurs. Again, as I explained to you, this is not Elam Hazeh, it's not Yemei HaMashiach, it's Elam Haba. Yizbat al hara, there will be a cessation of evil. Mavis haruchni ubemei legam mavis kipshute, a cessation of spiritual death, and therefore a cessation of actual death. Is ke'az yegili oirinai lebeyeser. In Elam Haba, there's going to be an introduction of a very, very high light, oir. Shalagabe oir zeh, that in relationship to this oir, mizbatle memele kol amenagdim. There's no opposition. There is no other side. There's no room for anything other than. If there's no room, this light is so potent, it's so strong, it's so powerful that it doesn't allow for anything other than the light to exist. So automatically there's no mis. I just want to say something, and this is now me talking. This doesn't say in the Maamar. Later on in the Maamar, you'll see at the end of Perek Gimel that the Rebbe is going to make this link in a slightly different way. You know, we learn in Chassidus, right, why is there going to be an end of Misa? Why is there going to be a Tchias HaMesim? Because we're going to finish with the bitter. We're going to get rid of all the sparks, and there's going to be no more evil in the world, and we sort of focus on the Geshem, on the Gashmias, the idea of Tchias HaMesim and Chayim Nitzchi, we associate with the Guf, and the Guf has a higher Shadish than Neshama, all those things that we usually learn about in Chassidus, like, for example, in Ranat. In this Maamar, the Rebbe's point is a little different. He says the end of Misa has to do with Oir. Oir means something outside. There's a world, and then there's light. There's going to be a light that's going to enter into this world from outside this world, but it's going to be such a strong light that there will be simply no impossibility for the world in the presence of such a light to tolerate anything but life. And it's going to affect immortality, nitzchias. And the Rebbe explains. The Rebbe explains, this one put up for the Rebbe Marash. The Hagam, to argue, Shegam Bizman Beis HaMikdash Hayakayim, the time that the first Beis HaMikdash stood. Ubefrat Vazman Bayis Rishon, especially during the time of the first Beis HaMikdash. Valach has come of a kama most specifically. Bimei Shloim, in time of Shloim HaMelech, that as the Chazal say, the Kaim was Siyarabashlamusa, the moon was full, right? Shloim HaMelech from Avraham Avinu is 15 generations. You can see in the Rebbeinu Bechai, I think in Vayeshev, that from Avraham to Shloim is 15 generations, and from Shloim to Tzidkiyahu is 15 generations more. That's how he explains Churban. So Shloim HaMelech, David is the 14th generation. David is gerade begematria 14. Shloim HaMelech is the 15th generation. So in the cycling relationship, the Levana-like relationship between the Eibishter and Yidden, Shloim HaMelech's time was optimum, maximum light. The moon was full. And as a consequence, it was a time of incredibly great light. And as a result, Shloim HaMelech was able to do the amazing things that he was able to accomplish. Because in the time of Shloim HaMelech, there was this incredibly great light. It says, called Rebbe Kol, Goyim, this battle of fun of everything which is called Goy, was bottled in his presence. And he had, Shaloi al Yedei Milchama Klal, there was no war. And you should know, if you think about it, it's taka amazing. Shloim HaMelech not only didn't pick up a sword, he didn't even have to think about picking up a sword. The world was in such awe of his personality, Pashat. Shloim HaMelech was such a powerful person. His muhus was so strong that it was not a yiras ha'oinesh, yiras chet, yiras cherev, there was Pashat, a yiras ha'reibamus. The Chazal say, the Gemara said Shloim HaMelech was a moishel bekipa. David HaMelech did a lot of fighting. But Shloim HaMelech didn't fight klal. He didn't raise a sword. He didn't even have to worry about war. The world was submissive to him, Pashat, because of, in a political level, because of his incredible personality. He was a giant, Shloim HaMelech. But of course, Chassidus says there wasn't just Shloim HaMelech's his chokhmah and his charisma. It was a lakus, it was getlichkeit. Says the Rebbe Shalachei Nikra b'Shem Shleima, which is why he carries the name Shleima. Ki Shalom Haya b'Yamav. He lived in a time of incredible peace. And according to halacha, I think, he could not be the one to build the Beis HaMikdash unless there was complete Shalom, for reasons that are not for tonight. Says the Rebbe Mekomokim. Shloim HaMelech's times were amazing. And the Gila, the course of time, the Shloim HaMelech were extraordinary. But it's not the same oir which is going to be Liyasid Lavi. And the proof is very simple. If in the time of Shloim HaMelech, the oil that was present is the same as going to be Liyasid Lavi, that would have been Tchias HaMesim. That would have been the end. So obviously it was a lesser oir. And the Rebbe explains. It says, the Rebbe Hagilui Shahoya B'mei Shloimei, the light which shone during the times of Shlomo HaMelech, Hoya Ba'oifen, it had a form, had a level. Shahoya Adayin Mokem Liyanikes HaChitzainim. It left space for Klippa to nourish. He didn't obliterate Klippa categorically. There was room for Klippa to nourish. Taka Klippa were these teeny tiny little creatures hiding in teeny tiny little cracks, but they were there and they were alive. They were drawing from Kedusha. Elashiyani Oz, the way Klippa lived then was Rak Me'acherayim the Kedusha, from the rear of Kedusha, from the lowest levels. They couldn't get a hold of Kedusha in a way which is called Pnimius. In other words, in a way which is called Gilui. It was a very, very limited nourishing from Kedusha to Klippa, but he didn't remove the Klippas absolutely. Klippa was still there. Shlomo HaMelech. Now, for the fancy schmancy people in the room, I just want to use holy words. I'm just going to say them, and I'm not going to explain them. The Maimorim say, the Rebbe doesn't say it here, but the other Maimorim, that it says in Kabbalah, there's Shiva Aliyahs of Malchus. Malchus has 7 Aliyahs. At the time of Shlomo HaMelech, and the same is true of Adam and Chava before the Chet, as they state, was only Aliyah HaShishis. It was not Aliyah HaShviyas. Aliyah HaShviyas is only going to be Liyasid Lavi. And Aliyah HaShviyas, which is higher than Aliyah HaShishis, is what affects the cessation of Misa and the cessation of Ra, and therefore the idea of Chayim Nitzchiyim. The Rebbe doesn't use those oisias in the Maamar. I'm just triggering your memory. Bracket, via Shloimar. The Rebbe is going to sort of present how we see the limitation in Shlomo HaMelech's oir. It was an incredible time, an amazing time. The world was in reverence of the Jewish people and of Shlomo HaMelech, not because he had a big army, but because he was a big chochem. And they had a Beis HaMikdash, and they served one God, like Rashi says. And the world was moved by this personality and by this time to become closer to the Eibishter. Says the Rebbe, it's true, Takir, that in the times of Shlomo HaMelech, there was still a basis for Klippa to exist and to draw life. Says the Rebbe, Nikir, you can see evidence of this. Look at the Goyim who were drawn to Kiddush. Don't look at the Goyim who resisted. Don't look at the Chitzainim. Look at the Goyim who were drawn to Kedusha. Who, because of Shlomo, they changed how they lived their lives. They came closer to Emes. They came closer to serving Hashem, Achdas Hashem, and so forth. Look at their bittul, and you'll understand that that's the beginning of the basis for how Chitzainim could exist. The classic example, this is in the Psukim in Tanakh, especially in Divrei Malchus Shva. She was the queen of Ethiopia, wherever she lived. And the pasuk says, "Va'tishma shema Shlomo, va'tova Yerushalayim." She came herself to Yerushalayim. The im hayois, notwithstanding, shegam b'yesa ba'arsa, while she was still in her land, which is a place 1,000 miles from Eretz Yisrael. V'rakshomas shema Shlomo. She heard about the fame of Shlomo HaMelech. Nasa b'bittel, parenthesis, k'tzas, she had a little bittel. That drew her to check this guy out. Who is this Shlomo HaMelech? And certainly after she came to him, she was able to experience up close and personal what it means that Shlomo was a chacham mikol adam, what kind of chacham he was. And of course, Shlomo HaMelech's chachma was connected to chachmas of Elokus. That by meeting Shlomo HaMelech, the bittul that she achieved, this is a Lashon HaPasuk, ruach. She had no spirit. Yeah, footnote 19 is a pasuk in Melachim. Yes? Mikomakim. There's a limitation. Gam oz hoisa malka. Fact was, she was a queen. She continued being a queen. V'yaseidim is a moreover, shagam Shlomo kibed eisa b'kol. Shlomo didn't treat her like treated other people. If Shlomo's presence is so powerful that everything is bottled, that everything is the same, but it wasn't. Shlomo's presence was very powerful, and Malchus Shva was a shtickle metzias. She was something, which indicates that the bittul of Shlomo HaMelech, the effect that his presence had on the world, left room for what we call in Chassidus, Welt, world. As opposed to when Mashiach comes, El Haba occurs, Yiyeh be'oifen, the circumstance is going to be, shalaiti yinikas lachitzenim klal, there'll be no space to feed. Klipa is going to die because it's going to run out of food. You ever learn Tanya Perek Lamed Zayin? Yeah, Rebbe describes, it sounds so simple. When you learn Lamed Zayin and Tanya, it sounds so simple. Everybody has to do his job, right? And then he says in small print, and no one's allowed to do any Avedas. And we're going to elevate Klipas Nega. So when Klipas Nega is elevated, Sholosh Klipas Atmei Zagami is going to die because he doesn't have anywhere to live from. La'asad Lovi, the Klipa is going to die because he's no Yanike. Gam le bebchinas achirayim, v'yizbat lara lagamri, evil is going to be bittled altogether. Bila mavas hanetzach. There'll be an end of death. If there's no Ra, and there's no Tumah, there's no Misa. Not, there's no Ra, there's no Tumah, and Hashem makes a Chiddush, and there's no Misa, there's no Ra, there's no Tumah, the world goes back to how it naturally should be, which is that you live forever. And now the Rebbe speaks Eidel Everter. Pei de Gimel. Rabbi said, Pei de Gimel is Tanya. Pei de Gimel is Tanya. And then, the Alter Rebbe says, the Rebbe, our Rebbe, in this Maamar, speaks a little bit different than the way you learn Tanya in Yeshiva. It's not a contradiction. It's just a little bit Eideler. Okay, and a short introduction. Really, I'll try to make this as quickly as I can. Okay. Yeah, I see a lot of Bachar Mekanahara. Yeah, you learn Tanya Perek Tezvov, and in Tanya Perek Tezvov, there's a character that's called Beinani Lo Yavodei. A Beinani is a Yetzer Hara. Lo Yavodei is not working hard. Why? There's three rules, three characteristics. If you have all three, Mitzunen B'Tivei, Mechuser Hergesh Hana B'Tivei, and Moresh Chayre B'Tivei, Masmid B'Limude B'Tivei, you could be a Beinani with a Yetzer Hara and have no desire to do an Aveda whatsoever. Now, I taught Perek Tezvav for Tezvav Shonim V'Yosef for many, many years, and the boys would raise their hand and say, Rebbe, Malamed, what's the difference between a Beinani, Le'Avodei, and a Tzaddik? So I'm asking the Bacharim, what's the difference between Beinani, Le'Avodei, and a Tzaddik? And the answer at Rabbi Sayyid is the definition of a Tzaddik is two things that always go together. Oyave Hashem Sinura. A tzaddik loves Hashem and he hates evil. A Beinani doesn't love Hashem, he serves him. He doesn't hate evil, he doesn't partake. A Beinani that's lei avodei does not have avas Hashem, he doesn't have mias and sin elara. He's kalt. What's lashon? Mitzunen b'tivei, mechuser regesh nove b'tivei, and masbim milmude b'tivei. And he's a Beinani lei avodei. A tzaddik is not defined by what he does. A tzaddik is defined by his passion. And a tzaddik's passion has two, the lashon of in Chassidus is beis, kavin, shkulim. The amount that he loves Hashem, this is how much he hates evil. So of course you have in Chassidus, this is the difference between different levels of tzaddik. There's a tzaddik she'enei gomor, that's kam arois from the madrega from Beinani. There's a tzaddik she'enei gomor that's virtually a tzaddik gomor, and there's a bunch of tzaddikim gemurim in between. Tzaddik she'enam gemurim. What's the difference between one level of tzaddik she'enei gomor and another level of tzaddik she'enei gomor? Two things. How much you love God and how much you hate evil. A tzaddik gomor is moyes berabet tachlis. He hates evil absolutely, and accordingly his avas Hashem has no limit. And the Alter Rebbe makes it very, very, very clear that every tzaddik she'enei gomor has a little kitzel of ra, has a little bit of ra that he can tolerate. There's ra in him. You see, the tzaddik she'enei has ra. Kaf of Latev, there's evil inside of him. Because there's a little bit of ra inside the tzaddik she'enei gomor, he can't hate himself. So his sinne for ra is not betachas hasin. It's called shalei betachas hasin. It's a ganz feine madrege, but it's not tzaddik gomor. Tzaddik gomor has no evil inside of himself. He hates evil categorically, absolutely, and memela his avas Hashem has no gevul, there's no limit whatsoever. It's a tzaddik gomor. Okay. Tzaddik she'enei gomor, right? And I just want to say one simple, logical, commonsensical thing. It's a funny thing. A tzaddik she'enei gomor hates ra, but it's b'murgish. He's very passionate about it. A tzaddik gomor, a perfect tzaddik, hates ra, and it's like ice. There's no emotion. Because when a person hates something and he's passionate about it, it's because he has a little bit of it inside of himself, and he's vulnerable to it. So the emotions are his way of dealing with a little bit of ra which is inside of himself. A tzaddik gomor has no ra in him whatsoever. He hates evil completely, and he doesn't even get excited about it because he's so unvulnerable. He's so removed from it that there's a cold, dispassionate hate that's limitless and cold. And on the other side, his Avas Hashem is believable. So the Rebbe here in this Maamar is going to say that Shleima HaMelech is like a tzaddik she'eini gomor. It's simple words. And la'asid love, when there's bila mavas lanetzach because of there's no tumah and there's no ra, so b'meila there's no miseh, this is a tzaddik gomor. But he starts with the ra, with the miyas to ra. Ubiur achilik, page 9. At the top of the page. Let's explain the difference. Bein ha'gilui shehoya b'mei shleima, the revelation, the times of Shleima HaMelech. Shemitzad gilui zeh, because of this revelation. There was room for klipa to still exist, because it could still nurse. From the rear of Kedusha at least. As opposed to what's going to happen in El Mabo. Parenthesis. Again, notice the word gilui. Because the revelation of the Asad Lava is going to be such that there will be no room for klipa whatsoever. This is a Maamar of the Rebbe Maharash. If you could remember the first page, he brought the Rebbe Maharash, right? The Rebbe Maharash explains, in Avodas Hashem, the difference is there's a worship, there's a service of staying away from evil. What we would call it iskafia. And Mayas Bara, which we would call is Hapcha. You see, but it's tricky. Over here, Sur Mera doesn't mean iskafia. Sur Mera means it's Hapcha, but not Betachlis. Sur Mera is Tzaddik. That's how this Maamar goes. Sur Mera doesn't mean not controlling yourself from doing an Aveda. It means you're staying away from evil and you hate evil. But you still have a relationship with it. So there's a Sur, you're turning away from evil inside yourself. You hate it, but not Betachlis HaSinah. Mayas Bara means I have no relationship with evil whatsoever, so the sin is Betachas HaSinah. So in other words, Sur Mera Tzaddik She'eini Gomer, that's how this Maamar goes, and Mayas Bara Tzaddik Gomer. The Sur Mera Hu, the level of pushing away evil is Shemat Chesara, you push the evil away, Aval Einiseni Esara Be'etzem. Your etzem doesn't hate the evil of the evil with its etzem. Ubemela, accordingly, you actually push the evil away. And as I said, and you'll see momentarily, you even hate it. But nishar etzlei adai in the sinas makam lara. In the person, there's place, there's possibility, there's room for an association with the evil. Va'acha behelem, that on a hidden level, this is what they call Netanya harashabei kofaf letoiv. Yesh lo eze shemetz. There's a trace, there's a drop, there's a trapala, there's a bisela. Ahav. In the tzaddik she'eini gomer, there's a tiny part of himself that associates with the ra. Kimevur betanya bedarga tzaddik she'eini gomer. You see, I didn't make it up. It's written inside, like it says in Tanya, but tzaddik she'eini gomer. So sur mera here is not beinani, it's tzaddik she'eini gomer. Ma she'enkin kishumayis bara. One is disgusted by evil. And by the way, they use the word mius and they use the word sinah. Hainu shumei is ben abetachlis. He's disgusted by evil absolutely. Das tzaddik. You know how one could be disgusted by evil absolutely? If he has no relationship with whatsoever. And it's weird. It's really counterintuitive. A person who has a shaykhis to an evil, when he sees, the Baal Shem Tov says, it says L'Likutei Sichos, when you see a ra in somebody else and you get angry, it's because that ra exists in you. If you see ra in another person doesn't upset you, it's because that ra is not inside of you. And ironically, you hate it more. But it's a cold hate. It's a dispassionate hate because there's no struggle. One is disgusted by evil absolutely. Dargas tzaddik gomor, the level of tzaddik gomor. There's no possibility for evil at all. And you know, to use the words of the previous paragraph, there's a sin of be'etzem to the etzem of the ra. Shaharei the Rabbi, to be sure, who seina yesara, he hates the evil. Umoyezbay, he's disgusted by the evil. Betachlas hasin of amiyas, with the greatest measure of hate and disgust. It can't be any more. Says the Rebbe, v'al derech zeh, bottom of page 9. Similarly, hu hachi, look, that's the distinction. The revelation of the times of Shlomo HaMelech and the revelations of Elam Habo. Says the Rebbe, in times of Shlomo HaMelech. It was true. There was such a great revelation, such a great light. Any menagid, any opponent was bittled. Parenthesis, bedugma, similar to Shegam Bahaveda the Surmera, who matre sara. When someone exercises in Surmera, they also push by evil. And again, in this Maamar, you want to emphasize that this is not the skafia. I'm controlling myself. This is take the beginning of his hapche. The Raz being transformed, but not betachlis. Mikom mokem still yashadayin mokem liyanika. There's space for klipa to draw. From the rear of Kedusha, at least. Because the dime of Shlomo HaMelech, let's put it this way, Shlomo HaMelech and his generation hated evil. But there was a little tiny corner that said, let me hang on to it for a second. So there was a chesaron in the oir, and therefore there was a chesaron in his battles. The disgust for evil is absolute. And she'ein shum nesinis makom lidei b'chedusha. There's no possibility whatsoever for what's opposite of kedusha. So it's not the pshat that the klipa is suspended. It's not the pshat that the klipa is interrupted. There's no place for him to exist. There's no source of life, no way for him to exist. So the Ra is gone, the tumah is gone, and I'm sorry for sounding like a broken record. And the natural order of things returns, which is that everything that God created is forever. Page 10, please, turn the page. And now the Rebbe says, V'yesh lo hoisiv, Dalpi hamavor betanya, it's written in Tanya. Shagedol hasin, alasiter acharav ami, is but the hatred to clip on the disgust of evil, who kafi erech gedel aval avaya, the loshen is, beis kaven shkulin, the ava to Eibishter. And the sinner are equal and opposite. Hashem sinner, they go together. If the ava is not complete to tev, the sinner to ra is not complete either. If the ava to tev is bligavul, is absolute, so the sinner to ra is accordingly bligavul. Says the Rebbe, hachilok bein sur mera lemeyes bara. When we separate sur mera, which is the tzaddik she'ene gomer, lemeyes bara, which is the tzaddik gomer. So here comes the Rebbe's words: leirak b'negeya le'efen shlilas hara. Don't only see it as a negative. How much I hate a little more, I hate a little less. Mestama Veista, you know, one of the stories that you have in the Friedrich Ebesiches is I think Rebbe Zalman Zesmir, or maybe someone saw him. There's a story where someone became a chassid by the Alter Rebbe's times, and they asked him why he became a chassid. So he said he watched Rebbe Zalman Zesmir listening to the Megillah, and he saw that be'emes feind gehat Haman. He saw he hated Haman, and he thought to himself, how could a person hate Haman so much? So he came to Rebbe Zalman Zesmir, I think it was Rebbe Zalman Zesmir, and he asked him, how do you hate Haman so much? And the Alter Rebbe gesagt, Vaderuf ist davon vorn in Lozne. You go to the Alter Rebbe, you'll find out how to hate Ra. This was a Yid about Madrege, and he understood that when Rebbe Zalman Zesmir, I think it's Rebbe Zalman Zesmir, if I'm incorrect, I could be corrected, hated Ra, Haman, he wasn't hating the guy, the person. Haman was Rima V'Teleya 1,000 years before. He hated the Inyan of Haman, and he wanted to hate Haman, and he didn't. So he says to this chassid, how can I hate Ra? He says, you have to go to the Rebbe. Says the Rebbe, it's gam begedel va'efen avas elavaya. There's an upside, the love for Hashem. And the Rebbe wants to spin it now. And the spin is, the first thing is not the sinnet Ra, the way he described in this entire Perek, Gimel. The first thing is the ava tetoiv. V'alpi zeh tumtak. This sweetens. Hashva, the corollary. The chiluk zeh, the Rebbe Marash brings this distinction between surmera lemeyes bara, which we're calling the hate of a tzaddik she'ene gomer versus the hate of a tzaddik gomer. La'achiluk, to what the Rebbe brought from the Rebbe Marash in Perek Beis of this Maamar, shebein ha'gilui shehoya b'mei shleima, the revelations in the times of Shlomo HaMelech, la'ha'gilui de liyased lovei, to the revelations of Elam Haba. In other words, the Rebbe Marash sort of changes. In Perek Beis of the Maamar, he says that the difference is in the greatness of the oir. In Perek Gimel, the Maamar, he says, our Maamar, he says, the difference is in the degree of sin and Torah. Says the Rebbe, but understand, the sin and Torah and the Avat Tov are equal and opposite. So really, these two sifim, Sif Beis and Gimel, are really saying the same thing. Because if you hate evil, you love God. So the Rebbe concludes, the distinction between the two in hating evil. There's room for klipa. The hate is so potent that there's no room for evil. Says the Rebbe, look at the next two words. In other words, don't think that Mashiach is about hating evil. Mashiach is about loving the Eibishter. But you measure the love for the Eibishter and your sinner for that. And what he said in Perek Beis, that the difference is in the Gili Ha'er, it's the same exact thing as in the sinner for that, the Tchiyas Sarah and the sinner Sarah, which he explained in Perek Gimel. Okay, now, Rabbi say. The next Perek is pure Rebbe. The next Perek, this is the Rebbe, Fartik. I don't know how the earlier Rabbeim addressed these in Yodim, you know, but I'm just going to give you a dugma, a gdoma, yeah? You ever learn Perek Chav Zayin in Tanya? Alter Rebbe in Perek Chav Zayin in Tanya, at the very, very end, speaks about Kadesh Atzmecha B'Mutelach. Kadesh Atzmecha B'Mutelach is about Dvarim HaMatorim, right? Alter Rebbe brings, and we pass it like the Charedim, that is B'minyan Taryag, is Kafi with Dvarim HaMatorim is a mitzvah, right? Kadesh Atzmecha with Loch is a mitzvah say. So the Pasuk says, V'hiskadishtem v'hiyisem kadosh. Right? How does Alter Rebbe teach V'hiskadishtem? Act holy. V'yisem kadoshim, you will become holy. That's how he teaches it. And the Lashon uses is Seifai li yetz kadosh or muvdo. I think legamri ma'asit ra'achere. A person who does a skafi and dvarim hamatorim, and we're not talking beinani, we're not talking tzad sheni gomer, a skafi beinani. If a person does a skafi and dvarim hamatorim, I would like to eat kach v'kach, and I don't because I don't need it. Eventually, you have no desire for it. Seifei li is kadosh or muvdo be'emes ma'asit ra'achere means you like a tzaddik. So there's a note from the Rebbe on that shtickle Tanya. It's the very last lines of Perek Chav Zayin. And the Rebbe sort of says that even though we know that a Beinani can't become a tzaddik, even Chotshafila state, dort in Sof Perek Yudala da bissel anders, right? A Beinani can't become a tzaddik, he doesn't have the right neshama. You could become a tzaddik in a prat. You could become a tzaddik in one area. In one thing, you could love good and hate evil. So Perek Dalet, the Pashtazach. The Rebbe just said that Mashiach comes, the world is in a state of tzaddik gomer. Tzaddik sheni gomer is not good enough. Yeah, tzaddik sheni gomer toignisht. Why? There's a psashtikul mokum where it says ava behelim la'asit ra'achere. Yeah. So the Rebbe has a poshet akasha. How in heaven's name do we bring Mashiach Tzidkeinu? Look inside. V'hina yadu a poshet akasha. Shekol agilim del yasid lavi. Everything that happens in Yemei Mashiach and in Elam Haba. Depend on the work and the toil of now. And of course, you know that in Perek Lamed Zayin there's a couple of more words. Ubefrat b'zman hagolos. There is a move on which indicates the zeh shel yasad lavi and elam haba yegilu. There's going to be such a great light. She'ein ein neisen makom l'nikasach hasen. They will push it, not allow klipa to nurse in any way, shape, or form. And as a consequence of this, bilam avos lanetzach, there will be a cessation of misa, and the natural order of things is going to return. That if Hashem made something and He gave it life, it lives forever. Says it has to happen through us. This idea that liyasid lave, there's going to be a maimed matzav, where the world is like in a state of tzaddik gomer. The avat Hashem is absolute. The sin and Torah is absolute. We have to bring this about. Now, how are we supposed to bring this about? See in the next paragraph, there's madregas beinani, and there's a madrega which many of you may not be familiar with, that's called lamata me madregas beinani. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but there's a madrega. How are we supposed to make this all happen? It says, the Maamar explains. I'm on page 10, second paragraph from the bottom and the middle. When a yid achieves hate for evil, that's absolute. So the Eibishter also hates evil Absolutely. B'tachas hasina. So in other words, it's like a serusa de la tata, serusa de la eila in the area of sinna, not in the area of iskafia. Umitzat sinna zu, because of this hate, yiyeh vesruach hatoma avim and aretz, tum is eradicated from the world, and as a consequence, bila mavos netzach, death is eradicated from the world, and so to speak, the natural order of things returns, which is chaya netzach. So there's a poshet kasha v'hine it says in Tanya in the first page, right? It's a Gemara. Ra kadosh baruch hu betzadikim shehei muatim. Right? What's the source of this? 26, huh? It's a Gemara in Yuma. Ra kadosh baruch hu betzadikim. It's a Gemara. Ra kadosh baruch hu. It says in Tanya Amru Chazal the Medrash, right? They state in Tanya, but the emes is a Gemara. Ra kadosh baruch hu betzadikim shehei muatim. Vayachol the Eibush Tesod tzadikim are few. Right? Amad v'shos v'chodesh nema betzadik. You say the Elah. Ubefrat, particularly, that in this Maamar, Shinas Arab Tachlis is Dargas Tzadik Gomer. Tzadik Sheini Gomer is called the Skafi in this Maamar. Dafke Tzadik Gomer is the full phenomena of Eyav Hashem Sinura. So now the Rebbe says, I don't understand. When it comes to the level of Beinani, Yadu Apiskam. We all know the phrase, the Rebbe said it in the name of Rebbe Hillel, Paracher, Halavai Beinani. And by the way, if you look in footnote 27, he brings the base Rebbe, but it says in Tanya, Halavai Haya Beinani, V'lei Rosha Afilu Shah Achas Kol Yom, is in Tanya Perich of Zion. But the Rebbe doesn't quote it from the Tanya, he quotes it from the base Rebbe, from Rebbe Hillel, Paracher. Halavai Beinani. Halavai Beinani. The phenomena of the cessation of death and immortality, living forever. It's not just going to be by a Rebbe, it's not going to be by a Tzadik Gomer, it's going to be by me and you, all of us. We're going to have Tchias HaMesim and Chaya Netzach. Says the Rebbe, move is that you have to say that we can bring this about. If we're going to be Zoichet, the Tchias HaMesim. And Tchias HaMesim means we love Hashem absolutely, we hate evil absolutely, and there's no place for Misa and Tumah and Ra in us whatsoever. And we do that through the work we do now. We're campaigning him. Says the Rebbe Muvah, you have to say pshat. Sha'avoidezu, that this level of tzaddik gomer, lisnei esara betachlas hasina, to hate evil absolutely, and of course accordingly to love alakus absolutely. Yechayla li is gamba beinanim. It can happen by a beinani as well. Va'afilu be'ele shalamatim imadreges beinim. Even if a person's less than madreges of beinani, I like to call it the revolving door Baal Tshuva. That's Lamata Madregas Beinani is the revolving, they're just going around and around in a circle. Unfortunately, it would be nice if we walked in a straight line. But the Madregas Lamata Beinani says every Yid has a Shaykhis to Avodah V'Tzaddik Gomer. And there's 2 points. Number 1. Every Yid has a moment. Yeah, the Yid at a moment. Every Jew has a moment when he's in a very special position. Pshas HaTfilah, when he's davening. He brings 5 examples, yeah? Pshas HaSekatera, when he's learning. He's doing a mitzvah was especially important to him, particularly having against the Kedesh Ches. He's involved in parochial worldly activities, but it's l'shem shamayim. When certainly if he's involved in worldly matters and in everything he's involved with, he sees Elokus. You're going to see L'das Hashem in making breakfast also. Says the Rebbe, every Yid has a moment. By one it's during davening. By another it's during learning. By a third it's doing a particular mitzvah which is meaningful to him. By a fourth, when he's engaged in L'shem Shamayim. By a fifth, when he's engaged in Da'eyu, says the Rebbe, at that moment, he gives away his entire form, as the Rebbe says in Yiddish, gibt sich iber in ganzen, lalakus. For that instant, for that moment, he has nothing to do with the dirty garments, and he's k'mei tzaddik gomer. If you look in footnote 32, you'll see the Rebbe's Mitzayim to Perek Yud. It's talking about tzaddik gomer. I don't know what this expression means, but I really don't. But hasoras habegodim hatzoyim lagamri. We always think of begodim as levushim. In Tanya, hasoras habegodim hatzoyim lagamri means tzaddik gomer, not tzaddik sheini gomer, and certainly not beinani. So the Rebbe says here, eini shayach lebegodim hatzoyim. He has the begodim hatzoyim because he's a beinani. But for that instant, that moment, is K'mei Tzaddik Gomer. So the Rebbe says every Yid, the Rebbe says as a fact, has a Tzaddik Gomer moment. You have a time where you're so engaged, so much involved with the Elokus, that you hate Ra betachlis. And you love Elokus betachlis. That's point one. And now comes point two. This is called Tanya math. It's a special kind of mathematics. The Rebbe is a big expert at this math. They say he created a new math. Acheshben, 1 + 1 = 2. Listen to this. It says in Tanya Kadisha that when a Yid does any mitzvah, doesn't matter how long, it's l'maylo nitzchi, right? L'mata me'azman, in time, when I do a mitzvah, so I'm doing the mitzvah. If I stop doing this mitzvah and I start doing a second mitzvah, there's no contradiction. So then both mitzvahs are in zman. If I do a third mitzvah, so all three mitzvahs are man. But if I engage in what they call the sholish avedas, this is Tanya Perek Chafei, she'ein of the nitzvah b'chol yom, like whatever it is, bittul teireh, v'kayetze bezeh. So l'mata me'azman, the mitzvah goes away. In other words, if I'm involved in something which is not holy, so the mitzvah I did a minute before, l'mata me'azman departs, but l'maylo means above zman, it's nitzchi le'lavod. A Yid does a mitzvah, that mitzvah he is doing b'chol rega v'rega l'netzach. So the Rebbe says, if you had a moment in your life, one moment, when you stood in the Maimed of Matzav, Hasaras HaBagodim Matzayim Lagamri, in other words, like a Tzaddik Gomer, and that moment exists also, L'mayla min Azman, says the Rebbe, Lochein Nimshech Ayedei Zeh. One moment in the life of any Yid, Beinani, Rosh, Tzaddik Sheni Gomer, of Meis Bara Betachlis, and Aval Hashem Betachlis, in a way that any Shayach L'Bagodim Matzayim affects, that forever, that's the Rebbe's word. The Rebbe's word is, you did a good thing, that good thing is forever. For one instant, you were Madregas Tzaddik Gomer, when Tchias HaMeisim occurs, you're going to be in a Maimed Dematzav, Bila Mavas HaNetzach. And the Rebbe finishes, V'zehu, Perek Hey now, bottom of page 11. Bila HaMovis LaNetzach. In El Mabon, Lasad Lava, there'll be a swallowing up of death. The coals, so long as there's sparks that still need to be clarified, disentangled, separated from Ra. Good and evil are intertwined, they're entangled. Even the times of the Beis HaMikdash where there's a very prominent presence of godly light, and even the presence of Oyer that exists in the times of Shlomo Melech. That Kaima Sira Bashlam Musa, the moon was full, still, Yashinyan Amisa. Unfortunately, there has to be death. Why? The purpose of death is to dissociate from the Ra inside of us. And so long as there's Ra, that's Behebech Chaim. And the Rebbe brings, of course, the Gemara, which we all know. This is the reason. Shegam tzadikim yachseru la'afron sho achas kedem tchias hamesim. We know that the guf of a tzaddik is alive. The pashtus. The guf of a tzaddik is alive not just inside the neshama, but inside the guf itself. Which is why we know by tzaddikim, we know b'muchesh, that the guf is kayam forever without any shini whatsoever. But the Gemara says one rega before tchias hamesim. Even those gufes that are kayam lanetzach are going to be nifsad, are going to deteriorate. Even though tzaddikim, on this level, worms can't touch them. This one moment prior to Tchias HaMeisim, the body existed, living, organic, hundreds and even thousands of years. Van Meises, Rabbi Avraham Azuloi, is an Angang in the cave von Avraham Avinu. Von der Gemara, man sagt, Rabbi Batzre, Rabbi Avo dort gegangen to mess with Midit Zakvarim. He describes how Avraham Avinu was laying, and Rabbi Avraham was in Amayre. Yeah, 2,000 years after Avraham Avinu, schlaft, and geschlafen, finished. The guf was whole. Nevertheless, a moment before Tchias has to be a deterioration of the guf. Why? Because every guf that comes from Chava has a shayches to Mise, And the only way to get rid of it is the guf should decompose, and then the guf is reconstructed. And you know the Rebbe speaks about this from the Etzem Luz. Etzem Luz has no shaykhs to this Indian. That's what Etzem Luz has no recover, and from there begins Tchias HaMeisim. Kimi Kivon, Shaydei Chetei Tzadas, Nasat Harufes B'chol Olam. The world is Teven Ra. Like I explained to you in the beginning, Adam and Chava didn't find out what Teven Ra sound like. They became Teven Ra. Lochen gam gufes hatzadikim yitztarchu lezichu. Even the guf of a tzaddik has ra as a result of the chet. And the only way to eradicate it is for the guf to come apart and to be reconstructed in a way that has no shaykhs to ra. And this is why even by tzaddikim that the guf is forever. There's a moment for Tchias HaMeisim, there's a recovery. So of course we all know that Rebbe Kochen Stark in footnote 36 it says, I'm reading it. The Rebbe says, and he said it, the Rebbe says, and the Rebbe says it's emes. I'm speaking now as a maskal, not as an oivid. In Askola, we halt says that a person could achieve a bittel that his guf is offered. And without the recovery, it's the equivalent of recovery. And you lose your association with the Ra. The Rebbe said it many, many, many times. And I read on. As opposed to love after Tchias HaMeisim. God Almighty eradicates tumah from the world. So automatically, there'll be no concept of death. Look at the next 5 words. Not just the neshama is forever, the body itself is eternal, is immortal. Why? The Eibishter made it. The Eibishter is a nitzchi, so everything he creates is nitzchius. So the natural condition of the Eibishter's world is that nothing that he made should ever stop being. Something got involved which made it necessary for there to be the opposite of that. When that is corrected, the world goes back to its basic condition. God created you. As long as he exists, you exist, which is forever. And then he continues. The Gam Lahadeya. There's a day in the Medrash, and there's also a Gemara like this. That Mashakosov Hanar ben Meya Shaman Yomas Hukipshutei. There's a pasuk that a boy dies at the age of 100. Now, this is very complicated stuff, okay? But in a lot of places, the pasuk Hanar ben Meya Shaman Yomes goes on Yemei Mashiach, not the Elam Haba, on the middle stage, at the final stage. And Yemei Mashiach, but Pashtus, there is Leida and there's Misa. But there are those Medrashim who learn that this pasuk Kanar b'mei shana yames is not talking about Yemei Mashiach. It's talking about El Maba, Hatman Akashe. We just said that El Maba, the natural condition of things, returns, and that everything Hashem made is a Dav Nitzchi. How does the pasuk say in Navi Hanar b'mei shana yames? So the Rebbe answers is Rak b'nei lebnei nech. This is talking about b'nei nech. I want you to know, I looked up the Medrash. In the Medrash, it doesn't say b'nei nech. In the Medrash, it says Akum. Which is a tzarachi in Godel, and I chavish ketzait to befalpos einzach, because a ben neach, right? The Rambam says this, and of course the Zohar says this, and the Rebbe has this famous letter that a goy can have elam haba. A goy can have elam haba, and a goy having elam haba means bepashtus that he lives forever. A goy lives forever. And according to Shittas Ramban, he lives forever in his guf. Ich weiß da ganz a scholar wegen dem. Aber Cholapachas like ein Nefen. The guy's guf, a physical guy who was Mekayim Sheva Mitzvot Neneach, whatever the Madreg is, he's a Ben Neach, he's a Ger Teishav, he's a Chasadum Eselam. He lives forever. The Rebbe changes from the Lashon HaMedrash to speak about Bnei Neach, not Akum. In other words, the Rebbe says, Ne'el Maba, Goyim live forever because they're Zeichet Elam Haba. They deserve Nitzchius. They've achieved the status of immortality. Or to say it, this Goy has achieved that not the end of him is that he should become a piece of God, but the end of him is a piece of God, and he should have eternal life. So the Pasuk says about these Bnei Neach that there's Misa. So there was, first of all, it's only by Bnei Neach. This is all in the Medrash. The Inyan of Misa in Elam Haba, which means the Inyan of Misa amongst people who are Zeichet Elam Haba, which means they're Zeichet, they deserve, they earned. Chayim Nitzchiyim, so by a Yid it's Bilam of Netzach, and by a Ben Noach there is a Inyan for Misa. But then the Rebbe adds, V'yeseira Mizu, moreover, the Gama Misa Shatia, Lidei Yezu, Bibnei Neach, Even the phenomena of death liyasad lavi. According to this one opinion in the Medrash, there's two opinions. There's Rabbi Shua ben Levi, and I forgot the other day, Rabbi Hanani, I think. By Bnei Neach, it's also leimisa mamish. It doesn't mean that a guy dies. And it doesn't make sense that a guy should die. Why? If there was a bila hamaves lanetzach, there's no in other words, it's not the pshat that Hashem has to do a nes and keep us alive. Hashem has to do a nes and cause misa. And if you take away the need for misa, the natural condition is chayin netzach. So the kasha is, how could there be a place for misa liyasad lave? So the Rebbe says it's nefila. As they shake the svarim upon him. Man, the nofel, midarge, ikre mis. When one falls from a levy is considered misa. The Rebbe Marash explains this in the Maamar. As you can see, my eyes work very well. In Goyim, the sparks of Elokus. Yisbarerum are going to achieve clarity. They're going to ascend. So the Rebbe says, Harasha behem, they're evil. But he doesn't mean evil in the sense of Moves and Tumah and Ra. It means Hainagufa Gashmi Shalahem, their physical body, which is Mavurah B'tachlis. But Nikra B'Shem Ra Be'erech, L'netzutas HaGedusha Shabei, relative to the sparks of holiness in the Beneach, Ra Yipalamat. The Eibush is to take whatever teva is out of the goy, and what's going to be left over? Only a goy. Now, I don't know for sure, but I'm going to tell you what I think this means. I'm going to finish Bli Neder, yeah. I'm not going to go on for much longer. Mit mir gesagt, in Zeit, noch ein paar Minuten. Bli Neder. I want to share with you, he says, a gedank on this. You know, Beis Rabbeinu Shebabavel. Yeah, you learned it here, Beis Rabbeinu Shebabavel. Or whatever, I don't know where the shir was. Yeah. The Rebbe speaks about the idea that there's pieces of Beis HaMikdash in the whole world. There's pieces of Beis HaMikdash in the whole world. What happens? The pieces of Beis HaMikdash, wherever they are, 770 and so on, are lifted up with the ground, with the Takadarotis, with the earth. And they're placed, Samuch to the Mikdash HaGadol B'Yerushalayim, right? The next to the Beis HaMikdash. What does that mean spiritually? What does it mean in spiritual aces? In spiritual aces, it means when the Eibishter created the world, he created Eretz Yisrael. Right? For the Kabbalists keeping score at home, and of course, your old big Mekubalim. Chutz La'aretz is Asiya, Eretz Yisrael is Yetzira, Yerushalayim is Bria, and Beit Mikdash is Atzilas. The Eibishter planted pieces of Elam HaYetzira in New York, and in Boston, and in Los Angeles, and in Lubavitch, and in Rostov, and in Leningrad, yeah. All those pieces of Yetzirah are taken from Chutz La'aretz and put into Eretz Yisrael. I think the Lashon is there's no longer Hashras Hashchin in Chutz La'aretz. So it sounds like Chutz La'aretz is better off before Mashiach comes. Why? Because before Mashiach comes, there's pieces of Eretz Yisrael in Chutz La'aretz. After Mashiach comes, every shtickle Chutz La'aretz moves to Eretz Yisrael and Ois Elikus. And it's true, Take. It's emes. But there's another way to look at it. When the Eibishter created the world in Taseder. Everything has its place. And when every single thing is in its correct place, that's really the true meaning of the word tikkun. When Asiya is only Asiya. Because the Nitzutzim of Yetzirah and Bria were removed and placed where they belong. And Yetzirah is only Yetzirah. And Bria is only Bria. And the Beis HaMikdash is only the Beis HaMikdash. So on the one hand, the Chutz La'aretz is lower than it was before. But on the other hand, everything has its place. Hakel bo al makemi b'shalom. And when everything has its place, there's a different kind of Elokus. So when the Rebbe says that a goy's goof is yipa lamata, means there's not going to be any nitzutzis, if you will, that have a shayches to a yid. So the goy is only a goy. He exists. He has chayin netzach, bila mavas netzach. The goof is forever. But nafel midagi ikre mis, because any nitzutzis he had a shayches to a kedusha, which is above his station, are removed. But what he is also good. What he is also tikkun. And what he is also a nitzchi. Anyway, I just told you what I think, but I don't know if it's true or not. The zehu b'meseilam, and even this is only by Yom Meseilam. Mashen can be as opposed to Yidden. Yisalagam aguf, the guf will be elevated. Shagam aguf yizin meruchnius k'me'an shama. The guf is nourished from ruchnius like the neshama is v'loya idala, and of course the higher madrega, as we all know. Shazi aguf l'mayla me'an neshama in a cave to save it. The guf, the lashon the Rebbe always brings for the Rebbe Marash. Ha-neshama nizaynis min ha-guf. The Rebbe doesn't bring that Maamar here, because in this Maamar B'chlal, the Rebbe is speaking about Giluyim, not Atzmos, Azei kum teis, like I said in the beginning. Right? He doesn't bring that lashon. He just says that the guf is going to be higher than the neshama. And the Rebbe says, V'chol zeh yeh b'poyel u'b'goloy l'mata masat v'chim. It's actual, it's revealed, and it's down here. Begula mitzvahs v'Hashem de b'shech tzedkenu. And ich meine, the thing the Rebbe is taken from a yad mamish. I mean, we want Mashiach now, but even nicht über Nigel. Man soll sein mit den Rebben, man soll sein mit der Rebbetzin, und man soll haben so lichtig und freilich und warm bei jederen. I want to say again, I thank you very much for this chus, Menachem, for letting me do this. I want to thank you for coming and listening to me for the last hour and whatever it is. Why we're not finished? I'm in Lasbet Eisreden. Ein Kleinigkeit, yeah. Doesn't that laber chol yeme? So the Ebeshes Alman bench was ein zugebunden. We should have a little bit of a connection to the Rebbe and to the Rebbetzin, which is by us in our times. Neil Chober, Cheseyim, Netzach, Selavod. We're not Grace Chasidim and Grace Tzadikim, aber folgen kennen mir. We can do what we're told. And the Ebeshel bench neder, we should be mekushet to the Rabbeim, and our life should be lichtig and not finster, freilich and not verchmoret. You know, that means in plain words, stop being such a realist and start being a little bit more of a believer and a lot more of a maimin and a bisschen betochen. Und dann gute Stimme taken from yad. A gute Nacht and a guten Shabbos. Thank you very much.